Good evening, everybody. Thanks for joining our November onX Hunt 101. We will get started here in just a minute, but while we wait for everyone to get situated, just a couple of housekeeping type things to go over. Let me pull up my agenda here for you quick. So your audio and video are turned off. So if you have noise in the background, no worries. We can't see or hear you. If you do have questions, we have a few members of our customer support team in the background answering those in the Q&A feature on most of your devices. That should be down towards the bottom of your screen. So please drop your questions in there. If you do have questions that are like pertaining to your account, so by that I mean, when's my renewal date, updating my payment, changing password, things like that, any like account specific, we just don't quite have the bandwidth to be able to look up all of that information and get back to you in the space of this class. So if you do have questions about your account, please email us help@onxmaps.com. That's the best way. You can email us tonight and you can expect a response probably tomorrow. There is also a chat feature available. I see there's a few people in there. Chat is great if you just want to let us know who you are, where you're tuning in from. Chat is not a good place for questions. It's just not built for us to be able to answer questions in a timely fashion. So we're not going to answer any questions in the chat. If you have a question you want answered, you have to use the Q&A feature. That's the best way for us to be able to answer those for you. And finally, this class is being recorded. So if you have to leave early and you want to go back and watch the portion you missed, or you just want to rewatch a portion, we'll have it uploaded to the onX Hunt YouTube channel tomorrow morning. And then tomorrow evening, about this time, we'll send you an email with the link to that YouTube video so you don't have to go searching for it. So you can go back and rewatch it at any time. All right, so let's get into it. First off, my name's Jack Headland. I'm going to be leading you through the class tonight. I've been with onX for about 7 years, originally from Central Minnesota, but I'm based out of our Missoula office now. So I've worked in customer support, GIS, and now on the marketing side. So kind of have a wide experience, I guess, here at onX. So what are we going to talk about tonight? First off, we're going to go over the different membership options available to you. We'll talk about the map layers, kind of the bread and butter of the onX Hunt app. We'll go over offline maps and using the app when you don't have cell service, a couple of our map tools, utilizing the My Location and Compass features. We'll talk about base maps and imagery options, how to perform a search, and then we'll save some time at the end for some live Q&A if there are any questions that our customer support folks have passed along to me, things that we need to demo again or things that I neglected to mention during the presentation. So this is a 101 presentation. It's intended for folks that are relatively new to the app, or maybe you've had it for a while, but you feel like you're kind of just scratching the surface of using the features. It's not an advanced class. So if that's you, if you're like, man, I know all the basics, this might not be the class for you. It might be some review. The goal here is that you're able to attend this class and that you'll have the confidence to go out this weekend and know that you are going to be able to use the app, that you're not going to be fumbling over it, that you're going to be able to mark some waypoints, save some offline maps, track yourself, find your way out into the woods or the field, wherever you're going, and then find your way back and have a successful hunt while you're out there. So let's start with the membership options. We really have a few different options for you as an onX Hunt user. So first off, most people, when you download the app for the first time, you will start a trial membership. Now, the trial gets you access to the paid features of the app. That trial lasts for a week in most cases. And then if you do not purchase a membership, you are bumped down to what's called a basic membership. So a basic membership is a free access. You didn't pay for it, but it doesn't give you very much access to the app. Basically, you're able to see your location on the map, on the satellite imagery, and that's about it. You don't have access to our map layers or to, offline maps or all of our map tools. You're kind of able to see the map and see your location. To get access to all of the different data within the app and the layers and the tools, you'll want to upgrade to either a premium or an elite membership. Now, our premium membership is broken up into two options. There's a premium one state membership and a premium two state membership. And they sound like what their names are. Premium one state gets you map layers, your private land information, your public land information for one state. Then you get access to offline maps, waypoints, tracker, wind and weather, things like that. Two state gets you access to two states. So if you are, you hunt New York and Pennsylvania every year, and those are the only two states, premium two state's a great option for you. Similarly, for folks that maybe travel to the west to elk hunt or antelope or mule deer every year, but also hunt whitetails in their home state. They might have Iowa, and then they also buy an Idaho, the license for Idaho. So they have Iowa and Idaho, whatever two states you need. Our full spectrum membership is our elite membership. So that gets you access to that land ownership information for all 50 states, plus what we have in Canada. So we've been slowly adding Canada data in. It's a little bit different than the United States. They have a whole different set of laws as far as, what is public information and what kind of data we're allowed to get. But that does come with the elite membership, along with all 50 states. There's also a few map tools and some imagery options that are only available with Elite. We'll cover some of those later on. Then you get access to our Elite benefits. So these are, if you're familiar with like AAA, where you get, discounts or benefits at hotels and auto shops and things like that. It's similar to that type of program where you get access to some of our partner companies like Huntin' Fool, which is if you're not familiar, Huntin' Fool is a company based out of Utah, and they really help break down applying for big game tags in the West. So they do breakdowns of the cost of it, season dates, units that are worth applying for, units that maybe aren't as worth applying for. You get a digital membership to them. You also get access to our hunt research tools, which is our draw odds calculator, so you can figure out how many points you have and what your draw odds are for different species and different units. And then there's just some straight up discounts on partner brands like Exo Mountain Gear, Final Rise, Tethered, Moultrie, Schnee's boots, lacrosse boots, things like that. So I don't want to make this too much of a sales pitch, but those elite benefits are pretty cool. The elite membership's $100 a year, and some of those benefits you can recoup that $100 right away. If it's gear you're going to buy anyways, might as well save some money there. All right. I am going to stop sharing on my computer here, and I'm going to switch over to my tablet. And I'm going to pull up the app here. So give me one moment. There's always just a little bit of a lag in Zoom while I get this pulled up on my tablet. All right, let's try this one more time. Okay, so this is the onX Hunt map. I'm going to zoom out a little bit. Here we are in Midtown, Missoula, Montana, in the onX home office. You're seeing a bunch of different stuff on my map right now. So as I zoom in, let's take a look at private lands information. So as I zoom in closer, my map starts to populate more with more information. I can see some landowner names on my map, as well as some orange or red parcel boundaries. If you're not seeing that on your map and you have a paid membership, that just means that that layer is not currently turned on. So to turn layers on and off, you go to Hunt Map Layers in the lower left-hand corner of the map screen. So there's a black button there with like some orange stacked tiles, it looks like. Tap on that. That's going to pull up the layers I have turned on. Now, I'm on an iPad here, which is a large screen, so things might look a little bit different if you're following along on your phone. Everything works the same. It's just because of the large screen format of this iPad, things might look slightly different with these menus. So I mentioned before, well, let me back up. In my map layers, I have all of these different folders or collections. You see, I have Minnesota, Montana, current conditions, land and access, etc. Those are all your different folders. That's how layers are grouped in this system. So you've got statewide folders, Minnesota, Montana are my two that are turned on. And then we've got some nationwide folders where it's data across the country, like current conditions, land and access. We'll get into those in a little bit. Right now, I'm just going to turn off Minnesota to clean things up. And I'm going to tap on my Montana folder. You can see I currently have 4 layers turned on: private lands, government lands, hunting districts, and block management. I can turn these on and off whenever I want. So when I turned off the private lands layer, you see the portion of my map that is showing, I lose all of that private land information. So if you're looking at your map and you're saying, man, I know I have a paid membership, I'm just not seeing the data, I'm not seeing land ownership information, I'm not seeing what I think I should be, double check that your layers are turned on. That's a common question we get. So I'm going to turn that back on. And then I'm just going to tap on a parcel on the map. I'm going to tap on the home office here. This pulls up what's called a query card. If I expand this, you see the information that's available to me. It tells me for this parcel, this private parcel, it's owned by Point Six LLC. I get the tax address, the county, and the acreage. So most commonly, it's going to be a person's name, but a lot of times land will be in an LLC or a trust or a limited partnership. So you might see that on there as well, especially if it's a business or maybe farm. A farm is a business, of course. A lot of times they'll have it under an LLC, or maybe it's a, Johnson Family Limited Partnership or something like that. The tax address there is the address where they receive their mail. It's not necessarily the address of that parcel. So don't get those two confused. If you're trying to drive to that property, you don't necessarily use the tax address, because if nobody lives there or if the landowner doesn't live there, they're not getting their property tax information sent there. It's going to send you to their house and maybe not to the field you want to hunt or something. But the tax address is useful if you're trying to send a letter to somebody to ask for hunting permission or things like that. Okay, private lands. Let's talk about public lands, or as they're called in the system here, government lands. If I zoom out and move the map just outside of town here, you see I have all of these different colors on my map. Those colors denote different designations, different types of public land. If I open up my map layers again, open up my Montana folder, and turn off the Montana government lands layer, you see how that colored filter is removed from my map. To bring it back, I just tap that switch and I turn it back on. If you want to know what type of land it is, the best way to do that is just to tap on it. That's going to be a recurring theme throughout this presentation. If you're not sure what something is on the map, tapping on it is going to give you more information. We don't have like a traditional legend or a key like you're used to with a paper map. Our key is by tapping on it. You access that information. So this is Lolo National Forest. If I expand it, it tells me the acreage for this parcel. It tells me the county. I can scroll down and get some more information. We might touch on some of that stuff later. Saw some stuff in the chat. People are saying I have an echo. I'm going to try to do my best here. I'm kind of limited with my laptop microphone. Other colorations. Blue is going to be your state land. So again, if I tap on it, it tells me state of Montana. If I scroll up the Blackfoot River here, this is yellow. This is BLM land. If I zoom out, there's this kind of brownish color. That's going to be tribal land. That's the Blackfoot, or not the Blackfoot, the Flathead Indian Reservation. If I go north here, purple is Glacier National Park. So national parks are purple. Military installations are going to be a pink color. The more you use the system, the more you use your onX Hunt app, the more intuitive it's going to become. You'll just know, all right, this green is Forest Service. Blue is going to be state land. Fish and wildlife refuges are this slightly different green color. And that's another tip I really want to let everyone, it's not even letting everyone in on. The onX Hunt app is a tool just like any of your other hunting tools are. It does take some practice. I've talked to people on the phone that bought onX on their way out hunting and then wanted me to teach them how to use it while they were driving to their hunting spot. I'm sure people have done this, but I wouldn't recommend buying a bow or buying a rifle the day I'm going out hunting because I'm probably not going to be very proficient with it. onX is very similar. You need to familiarize yourself with it. The best way to do it is just spend time in the app. The more buttons you press, the more time you spend in here, the more comfortable you're going to be. Now, obviously, taking a class like this is going to hopefully shorten that learning curve, but definitely um, spend some time in the app, after this class and when you have time. Folks, I see there's a lot of questions in the chat. Like I said earlier, we're not answering questions in the chat. They have to go in the Q&A. We're just not able to monitor both of those, and there's not a good way for us to respond to specific questions in the chat. So please drop those in the Q&A. Couple more layers I want to talk about here. The hunting districts layer. Every state calls these something different. In Montana, they're hunting districts. It might be deer permit areas. It might be GMUs. They might be hunting zones. Okay, everyone has different terminology. But if I zoom out, you can see these are the kind of green polygons on my map with numbers in them. Those are all of our different Montana hunting districts. I mention this because a lot of states have different districts for different animals. You need to make sure you have the proper sublayer selected. So if I expand my menu here, you can see under Montana hunting districts, there's the number 17 there. That means there's 17 sublayers. If I tap view options, that shows me those 17 different sublayers. So Montana has different districts for black bear, deer and elk, moose, mountain goat, spring turkey, fall turkey, antelope. Okay, so this is a question we often get. Wyoming seems to be the one we hear about the most because Wyoming, like Montana, has antelope districts and deer districts and elk districts. And I think they even have different mule deer and whitetail districts in some parts of the state. So if you're looking at your map and you're looking at the game and fish brochure and you're saying, man, these boundaries don't look right, make sure you have the correct ones selected. So if I zoom out here a bit, when I switch it to antelope, you see there's not really any districts in the western quarter or third of the states because there's no antelope up there, or very, very few. There's no hunting opportunities. If I switch to deer and elk, you see how that changes. Black bear, that changes. Moose, fisher. Okay, so most states are going to have deer, or if they're all the big game districts are the same, that's what's going to be selected by default. But just double check that to make sure you're staying legal and you have the right information there. Every state is going to have slightly different layers in them. You see, in Montana, we have, I think it's 9 different options. That's because we have a walk-in program. It's called block management. We have some game distribution data that we get from Fish, Wildlife, and Parks. We have a treaty boundary in there for some of the tribes in the state. Your state might only have 4 or 5 layers in there just because of they don't have those same programs or that same data. But every state is going to have private lands, government lands, and possible access. And I think every state, except maybe one, is going to have hunting districts. So check those out, turn them on, turn them off. There's some you might never use. That's great. You can turn that off as well. See somebody from Canada in there said, don't forget about us. If I scroll down, you'll see Canada is listed here as well among my states. So with an elite membership, like I mentioned before, I have access to all the states. So if I want to turn on Alaska, I just tap on it, and now I have my Alaska layers available. Same with Canada, that's listed there. So if I tap on Canada, then my Canada folder appears up at the top. So like I said, in Canada, we're still relatively new to Canada, and Canada is a whole other ball of wax when it comes to getting data. So we do have hunting units pretty much countrywide. For some provinces, we have some of the different special draw zones, limited entry zones, like you see BC listed there, Alberta, Saskatchewan. We've got parcel lines in some provinces, not all. So check that out if you're from Canada and hunt there, or if you're from the States and you're looking to head north, maybe do some waterfowl hunting or some big game hunting up there, you can check out what we have for Canada as well. To turn off a state, all I have to do is tap on that green switch, like I just did for Canada. I know Canada's not a state. We're just kind of working through how we have these all organized here right now. So we threw it in there. And my recommendation for most folks is don't have more than a few states turned on at once. Some people will turn on all 50 and it'll slow their app down because that's just way too much data. Yeah, I knew I shouldn't have even mentioned anything about Canada because I see people are in the chat there. Anyway, let's keep things cordial. Don't have more than like 5 states turned on is my recommendation. I rarely have more than 2. I just returned from Minnesota. I was at our family deer camp in the northern part of the state. So I had Montana and Minnesota turned on, but you're probably only hunting one state at a time unless I know some people will, if you're on the border of like North and South Dakota, for example. South Dakota pheasant doesn't open until 10 o'clock in the morning. So they'll hunt North Dakota until 10 o'clock and then jump to South Dakota. That's kind of a special use case. Otherwise, have 1 or 2 turned on and you're good to go. Let's talk about these other folders in here. So current conditions, land and access, all of these are nationwide folders. And as long as you have a paid membership, you have access to these. So this causes some confusion. I definitely get it. We often hear from people, they'll say, man, I'm looking for the wildfire data, but I don't see it listed under Colorado. That's because it's a nationwide data source, and we give it to you even if you don't have the elite nationwide membership. So even if you have a 1-state premium, you have access to current conditions, land and access, roads, trails, and rec, etc. So this current conditions folder, the one I use the most is the active wildfire. Luckily, we're kind of out of the big wildfire season right now, but if I zoom in, you see I do have these little flame icons kind of all over on my map. These are all prescribed burns. You know that because they have the RX label on there. And if I want more info, I can just tap on it and it'll tell me this is a prescribed burn. They're probably burning slash piles from logging projects this year, maybe, fuels reduction, things like that. For an actual wildfire, this is what they'll look like. This is the Island Creek fire in Idaho. It's going to show you the perimeter of the burn. And if I tap on it, it's going to give me some more information. It'll give me the acreage, the percent contained, the name of the fire. Now, this is a good example. I don't believe this fire is still burning, but our source has not updated this data. You see those 2 lines there, onX last checked and source updated. We will check our fire sources multiple times a day and update it. The source hasn't updated since September 28th. So you can bet something has changed on this fire. I would bet it's probably out. Usually that's how it goes is once a fire is put out, it takes a few days for the source to update and remove that. In this case, it's taken them a few months to update that. But that's just something to double check, especially during, June, July, August, September, peak fire season, at least in the West here, just to see, how current that data is. A couple other folders here. So current conditions, like I said, these are often ones that I will use for scouting. I'll turn on for a little bit and then turn off. I don't often use these when I'm out in the field. Land and access, somewhat similar. There are some of these that I always keep on, like the wilderness areas. So that's going to be your federally designated wilderness, like the Boundary Waters, like the Frank Church Wilderness, like the Bob Marshall Wilderness. Those are going to be highlighted in a slightly brighter green. So I just moved my map to that Bob Marshall Wilderness Complex. You can see it's a little bit brighter green than the rest of the Forest Service in that area. Similarly, I keep the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service hunt areas turned on. This is going to be for your wildlife refuges, and it's going to show you those refuges that allow hunting, and it'll show you the zones in there. A lot of times they're broken up into different zones. This is a refuge south of Missoula here that allows waterfowl in a certain portion of the refuge and allows archery deer hunting in a certain portion of the refuge. So you can see where those boundaries are as well as the no hunting areas. So if you're a person who hunts refuges, doesn't matter where you are, there's probably a refuge somewhere near you. That's one to take a look at. Some of the other ones here that are interesting, the Ducks Unlimited, Pheasants Forever, and Quail Forever, and Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation. Those are those are showing projects that those NGOs, those nonprofits have done, whether it's habitat improvement or land acquisition, where they've made it, public or public access. So those are sometimes kind of neat to see, especially if you're a person who's a member of one of those organizations, to see, hey, where is my money and support going? You can see some of the on the ground projects that they've worked on there. Roads, trails, and rec are some helpful layers. I'm just going to move my map to Mount Sentinel here. There's a bunch of hiking trails. So if I turn all of those off, I'm not really able to see where those trails are. And this is more than just like city hiking trails like we have here. It's trails all throughout, public lands, Forest Service, BLM, national parks even. We have trails in there. So you can turn on the trails, turn on the trail slope. That's going to color code those trails to let you know red is steep, green is flat, yellow and orange are in between. The recreation sites is another one I recommend having turned on. That's going to give you, everything from campsites and city parks to trailheads, license providers. I think we even still have some breweries in there for your post-hunt libation. Gas stations are in there. Points of interest, historical sites, some mines are in there. So that's one I always have turned on. And then the motorized roads and trails as well. So if I move my map over to an area where I know there are some motorized roads, those are those purple and white lines. So if I toggle that on and off, you can see the difference there. It just highlights those roads that receive more maintenance. So these are roads that are, there's motorized access to them, and they're going to get cleared out if there's trees down or if there's a rock slide. They receive some maintenance from, primarily these are on Forest Service lands. And I actually read a stat the other day. The Forest Service is the largest road maintenance organization in the world. They're responsible for more miles of road than any other, like government agency, which is pretty crazy. It's like 600 and some thousand miles of road on Forest Service lands is nuts to think about. Anyway, enough editorializing. If I tap on the map, it's going to tell me important information about these roads. It's going to give me the name, the ID, accessible by. A lot of these roads have width restrictions, meaning some are only dirt bike trails or some are ATV and dirt bike trails. This one, since it says overland, that means a passenger car. Like my bone stock half-ton GMC is legal on these roads. If it doesn't say overland, but it says high clearance 4x4, that means there's not a width restriction on it, but it means that it is a rougher road. And you might need a specialized kind of off-roading rig, a Jeep or a Tacoma or 4Runner or something like that with some maybe bigger tires or a lift kit or something. Some of those roads, I've taken my GMC, my stock rig down. Some of them, not so good. So you do kind of have to ground truth it, but it'll give you a little bit of a sense of this road's probably a little bit better for my vehicle. That road, maybe not quite so much. Then the other important part here are these open and closed dates. You see for overland here, this is open May 16th through November 30th. In Montana, we close a lot of our roads in conjunction with hunting season and then in conjunction with spring calving and fawning seasons. So we have some roads, and a lot of states do this. We'll have some roads that close down right before archery season, and then it's walk-in only beyond that gate. We have some that will close right before rifle season, and then we have a bunch that close right after the general rifle season. That's to just provide some sanctuary, in most cases, to provide sanctuary for animals during a vulnerable time of the year. And then a lot of times they won't open until after the fawns and the calves have dropped or the elk and deer have moved off of the winter range and are moving back to the summer range, just so that they're not being as bothered by motor vehicles driving through those areas. In some places, they do it for bears or different animals. So double check that so that you don't drive out Saturday morning thinking you're going hunting, and you're going to drive in a ways and you're met with a locked gate. Spend some time in these map layers. I don't have time to go over all of them here. We're already a half hour in. I do have to move on, but poke around in here, turn these layers on and off. There's some that are just outstanding for scouting. There's some that you're going to use when you're out in the field. There's some you might never use, and that's okay. We have all kinds of different stuff in there for different types of hunters in different parts of the country. I'm going to move on from map layers and we're going to move over to offline maps. Let's say you're going to be hunting an area where you don't have cell service. We hear this quite a bit. You're like, all this stuff's good, Jack, but where I hunt, there's no cell service. Let me tell you, me too, most of the time. Especially, I was just at our deer camp in northern Minnesota. Very little cell service there. You're lucky if you can get a text message out. So, what I did in that case was I saved an offline map before I headed up to deer camp. First thing I'm going to do, I'm just going to move my map to a portion of the state. Let's say I draw that coveted Breaks elk tag, and I'm going to go hunting the Missouri Breaks area. Along the bottom left-hand corner of my screen, there's a button that says Offline Maps. I'm going to tap on it. Then I'm going to have an option that says New Offline Map. I'm going to tap on that. Now I have a box on my screen, and whatever is within that box is what's going to be saved for offline use. So I can still move this around a little bit. I'm just using one finger on the map to get it set where I wanted. Maybe, it's almost ice fishing season. Maybe I want to go ice fish Fort Peck. I'm going to use it for that as well. I'm just going to get it set. We'll put it right here. That looks pretty good. And then from there, I can choose my map detail. Medium is going to be selected by default. And for Western hunters, that's what I recommend 90% of the time. If you're primarily hunting in the East or you're primarily a stationary hunter, meaning I'm going duck hunting and I'm going to this blind, or maybe there's a couple blinds close together. I've got a deer lease, or my family deer camp in Minnesota. We know where we're going to be. Our stands are set. We're not going to be driving all over a unit like you might do when you're pheasant hunting or when you're antelope hunting or elk hunting. You pretty much know where you're going to be. Then I recommend the high detail map. You can see it's quite a bit smaller, but it's going to have crisper image resolution, more resolution. That's what that detail level is referring to, is the imagery. Your layers are the same. They're going to save the same. Your roads and trails and cities and all that's going to stay the same no matter what detail level you choose. It's just how high of resolution imagery do you want? Like I said, Western hunting, most of the time, I'm using medium because I want a big area because I might bounce around. I might be driving a long ways in between spots. I like having that whitetail spots, duck spots. I use this high resolution image. So I'm just going to choose medium for now. I'm going to expand my menu. I recommend naming your maps, especially once you get, like on my personal account, I think I have close to 100 offline maps saved. It's helpful to have a name for them. And you can double up on names if you want. If you have 4 different maps in southeastern Iowa, you can name them all southeastern Iowa. I usually name mine after a city or a hunt unit or just like an area. When I was pheasant hunting in Region 7 of Montana, that's the southeastern portion of the state, I had a whole bunch of them saved and I just named them all Region 7. Whatever works for you. I'm just going to name this one Breaks because it's roughly around the Missouri Breaks, and hit save. Once I have that saved, it's going to start downloading. You see that percentage moving up on my map there. Once that green box you see on my map turns bright green, that map is ready to go, and it will have a green check mark next to it. If you look at my menu there, I have one titled Minnesota S for Minnesota South. That map is good to go because it has a green check mark next to it. If I zoom out my map, you see I've got maps saved all over the place. I've got some green boxes in western Montana, got some in central Montana, got some in Minnesota, but I've also got some that have a red and white border around them. Almost looks like a candy cane or a barber pole. Those are maps that I had previously saved but had offloaded. So what does that mean? You can remove a map download from your account without totally removing the boundary. So why would you do that? It's a way to save space, but not totally delete a map from your account. So this map I have here in Little Belt Mountains. If you look at my menu, my second map there, down from Breaks, Minnesota S, Little Belts. That was, the example I give is, let's say I make a trip to the Little Belts once a year to hunt, but it's not somewhere I go regularly. I can download a map for that Little Belts trip for that week long. I just did this for our hunting camp in Minnesota. Downloaded the map. Now I'm back in Montana. I remove that. That is going to save this boundary for next year. So the map is not taking up space on my phone. There's no down. If I went to the Little Belts right now, I couldn't use this map. But when I want it again, all I have to do is tap that down arrow and it's going to start downloading. So if you have areas where you hunt for a week a year and then you never go back, you can save those maps and then offload them. So what does that look like? I'm going to use this Minnesota South map to show you how to do that. Tap those three dots, hit remove from device. That way, that Minnesota map that I had shown you earlier, now it's not usable anymore. It's not taking up space. When I want it again, just tap to download it. The other way you can get into this scenario where your maps have a red and white box around them, the most common way is if you get a new device. So if you get a new phone, which unfortunately seems to happen every couple of years, we have to replace our phones. At least if you're clumsy like me, you do. When you download all your apps to your new phone, you don't have to purchase onX again. Your membership transfers over. You just have to log in with the same email and password as you did on your old phone. Your waypoints will all be there. Any content that you made will be retained and will transfer over, but your offline maps will not be. You'll see the boundaries, but the actual map data has to be downloaded to the storage on that new phone. So you'll have to just go in and re-download those new maps. So if you get a new phone, don't forget to do that step. A couple of my maps here, you might notice say update available, like this one that says Minnesota Camp. Update available. That means that some data has changed within that boundary. Some map data has changed. Most commonly, it's land ownership information. We update land ownership information at least once a year for every county or county equivalent in the country, which there's like 3,300 counties or boroughs in Alaska or parishes in Louisiana. I didn't forget about you folks. Some counties get updated more often. In Montana, some of our counties are on an almost weekly update. It just depends on how often your county GIS department updates their data. Some states or some counties do it once a year, some do it twice a year, some do it every month. So we try to match our update schedule to your county. To update this, all I have to do is tap that green check mark and it's going to update my map there. If you're driving out hunting and you see there's an update available, go hunting. Don't be like the customer I talked to who said, man, we were driving out hunting and I saw it said update available, so I had to pull over and find a coffee shop or a McDonald's to get Wi-Fi so I could update it. Your map is still going to work if it says update available. Just means a piece of information is outdated. If you're hunting public land, you're probably okay. That stuff doesn't change hands too often. The boundaries don't change. Private land, if it's private that you own or private you have permission on, chances are you would have already been aware if there was a change in ownership. Update it when you can. If you're heading up to deer camp, I know Wisconsin opens this weekend, update it right now, you're going to be good. I do it a few times throughout the year. Of course, I work at onX, so it's not a big deal for me to pull it out and just have it updating on my desk there. So don't stress out about it. Just do it when you think of it. A couple more tips on offline maps. When you're out in an area without cell service or very limited cell service, I recommend putting your phone into airplane mode. That is going to save your battery life better than just about anything else you can do, especially as we get into these colder months. That cold zaps your battery. Putting it into airplane mode turns off the cell signal. So you're not going to send or receive phone calls or text messages or Instagram notifications, which to me is sometimes a benefit to not have my phone buzzing in my pocket. but that's a big draw on your phone, especially if there's no service, if it's trying to connect. Put it into airplane mode. You're still able to see your location on the map. You're still able to mark waypoints. You're still able to track yourself. You can still use most of the app functions. And any waypoints you mark when you're offline, when you return to service, that will sync up with your account and be saved there for future use. So no worries there. Speaking of waypoints and tools, I'm going to move the map back to my location. I'm going to zoom in a little bit. Let's talk about some of the tools and specifically the waypoints. So along the bottom of my screen, again, in the center icon says tools, looks like a Swiss Army knife. Tap on that, shows me the tools available to me. Tonight, we're going to focus primarily on waypoints. There are a couple ways to mark a waypoint. If I want to mark where I am currently, I can tap the button that says mark my location. It's going to place a waypoint on my location. This is what I use primarily when I'm in the field. So if I'm hunting a new area, say I drive my truck out there, park the truck, I hit mark my location. When I set up a tree stand or a duck blind, mark my location. I find a buck rub or I flush a pheasant, mark my location so that I can find it for future reference. If I want to mark an area that's not where I am currently, especially when I'm doing my scouting from home on my computer, I'm going to use the add waypoint feature. So if I just move to where there's no waypoints on my map, we'll get this state piece. Let's say I want to get up to this point here, this peak. I'm going to tap add waypoint. You see it didn't put the waypoint exactly where I want. That's okay. It's just going to drop them in the center of your map. To readjust it, all you have to do is tap your map with one finger. I know you can't see it, see me tapping the map, but that's what I'm doing. You can zoom in to get a little more exact. That's where I want it. Hit save. Another way to mark a waypoint, and what I do more often now, is what's called a long press. So if you just tap the map and hold your finger down for 2 seconds, it's going to place a waypoint where your finger was. And then you can save it from there. If you do that accidentally, if you're just panning your map and you leave your finger on and it drops a waypoint, no worries. In the top left corner, there's a button that says cancel. That's going to remove that for you. So it's something that's easy to accidentally do. Just cancel it out. That'll clear the waypoint off your map. Finally, if you just tap a map, like you're querying the map, like I showed earlier, oh, what kind of land is this? State of Montana. Along the bottom of my screen, I don't know how well you can see it. Zoom might cut it off, but there's a button that says add waypoint. It'll put a waypoint right where you tapped on the map. So I've got some waypoints saved here, but they don't really tell me a whole lot of information, right? It says waypoint 11, 19, 25, 18, 13. What does that mean? What did I mark there? Please customize your waypoints. Try not to have any red X's on your map. A few years back, I went through all of my waypoints and deleted anything that wasn't customized because I didn't know what it meant. I might have been out hunting and, saw a rub on a tree, but I didn't have the time to customize it, or I was just being lazy. 6 months, a year later, I don't know what I marked there. Did I see a deer there? Did I see a rub? Was there, some sort of hazard, deadfall down tree or something? To customize a waypoint, the more you do this, again, it might seem a little tedious at first, but it gets really fast the more you practice. Tap on a waypoint. It's going to pull up this information card. Lower left-hand corner, there's an orange edit button. Tap edit. Then it's going to give me my edit screen here. First thing I do is give it a name. Let's say this is an area I want to scout for deer. I'm just going to name it Scout for Deer. You can name it whatever you want. Big giant buck, John's tree stand, Bill's duck blind. Here's where I parked the truck, whatever. From there, choose a different waypoint icon. We have 90 some different icons. Some of them are animals, some of them are terrain features. So this is a spot I want to scout for deer. I'm going to put I'm going to choose the buck whitetail icon. You can make it dog, fox, whatever you want. Then choose a color for your waypoints. I color code my waypoints based on species. A lot of different ways to color code your waypoints. I think I'm in the minority here at the office, but I will hunt just about anything the state of Montana gives me a license to hunt. I hunt upland birds, waterfowl, deer, bear, elk, turkey. So all of my deer icons are one color. My elk icons are another color. My waterfowl icons are a third color. You get the idea. That way, when you have a couple thousand waypoints, when I look at my map, I can tell at a glance, just looking at the color, those are deer spots, those are waterfowl spots, those are turkey spots, and so on. That's one way to do it. Another way to do it is what a lot of people do is by year, especially if you're hunting the same property and you want to see that change over year. So they'll just pick a color for a year. 2025 is red. 2026 is dark blue. 2027 is light blue. 2028 is going to be green. That way you can see, oh man, there was a whole bunch of buck rubs here last year, but not this year. Or it's, man, every year there's rubs in this area. This is a good buck travel corridor. They're always making rubs in here. That's another way to do it. If I was like managing land, if I'm fortunate enough to own land someday, maybe have a hunting camp, I would maybe do it based on, you know, not necessarily on species, but if let's say it's a deer hunting lease or deer hunting camp, I would mark my tree stands one color. I would have ground blinds another color. I would have water holes or salt licks another color, things like that. Just whatever makes sense to you. There's no real right or wrong way. The only wrong way is by doing nothing. So this deer icon, since I haven't been there yet and it's a scouting icon, I'm going to make it that dark red. That's my way of knowing I haven't been here yet. Go check it out. Then when I go check it out, if it's good, I might move it back to blue or whatever my confirmed color is, or I might make it black or white, which is mine. Nope, you've been here. It doesn't look good with boots on the ground. Hit save. Now this waypoint is telling me a lot more information than just a plain red X. While we're here, if I want to delete a waypoint, I can tap on it along the bottom of my screen. Instead of that edit button, I'm going to scroll over. The farthest option on the right says delete. It'll ask you to confirm, and that's how you can delete a waypoint. Let's say I want to share a waypoint with a friend. So since it's deer season for a lot of the country, we'll stick with the deer hunting theme. I'm going to move to this property I had kind of set up in North Carolina. So let's just pretend this is our deer camp. You see, that's kind of my example from before. I got the tree stands one color, I got buck sign another color, bedding area is another color. I've got a buddy who's coming out. He's never been here before. I want to send him to a tree stand. I'm going to tap on a tree stand, jack stand. Then again, along the bottom of my screen, there's a button that says share. When I hit share with link, it's going to look a little different because I'm on a tablet here, but I can choose to send a text message, an email. I can just copy this link and paste it into an Instagram or Facebook message, whatever you want. I can text message this to my buddy. They will receive it. It'll say Jack wants to share a waypoint with you. They'll tap on it. It'll open up onX on their phone and ask if they want to add it to their map. They say yes. They will be able to view this waypoint on their map. Nice part is you can restrict access to this. You can make it like a read-only document if you're familiar with like Google Docs, where they're able to see it, but they're not able to change it. They're not able to send it to anybody else. They're able to see it and delete it, and that's about it. So you don't have to worry about, anyone else getting access to this. And that's something, while I'm on the topic, we get this question of if other people can see your data, or if we at onX can see your waypoints. The only people that can see your waypoints, your tracks, your content is you and the people you choose to share it with. We can't see any of your content. That would be like fireable offense number one at onX if anybody was trying to view customer data. We value that privacy. We're hunters ourselves. We know how important these spots are. So nobody else can see your stuff unless you explicitly share it with them, like I just showed here, or you physically show them your map. So no worries there. Let me take a look at my outline here. You notice a couple of my waypoints here have some other information on them. I've added wind direction to some of these waypoints. I'm going to show you how to do that. So here's the home icon. Let's say I want to know well, you know what? Let's do a better example. I'm going to put a tree stand. Where's a good spot? Let's put one up on this field. Let's put one right here, doing a long pressed. Maybe it's a ground blind. Let's say that's Katie's blind. That's where she likes to hunt. Okay, hit save. Once I have that saved, I can tap on that waypoint, and then I have these waypoint tools. Wind direction, if I tap on that, I have two options. I can have it show me the current wind, which is just going to tell me what direction the wind is and how fast it's blowing, or I can set optimal wind. So optimal wind lets me select for each stand what the best wind is. So here, I probably don't want to hunt this on an east wind, where the wind's blowing into the field. West wind, southwest, northwest, sure. Depending where I think the deer are going to come out, maybe south, maybe not. We'll choose it for now and hit apply. It'll take a little bit to populate. There's not much wind here, maybe no wind. If there is, it's out of the northeast. It's telling me that's a bad wind. It's very nice when you have all of your tree stands or all of your duck blinds or all of your areas set up to be able to just look at a glance what's got good wind, what has bad wind. It kind of gets rid of that paralysis by analysis. If I don't know where to go, I don't know where to sit. A lot of times you can at least knock off a portion of your options. And now instead of 10 tree stands to choose from, you don't know where to go. Maybe you've only got 4 or 5 that have good wind. Another thing you can do here, another one of the waypoint tools is the radius. That lets you set a radius around a point. So this could be for a tree stand or a ground blind. Let me get back here. If I have a 50-yard limit, that's how far I can shoot with my bow. I can set that and I can see what portion of that field I can cover. For states that have setback rules or safety zones around like occupied buildings, maybe it's 400 yards. You can put that there and then hey, we can't hunt within that circle, 400 yards or whatever it is. I know that's depending on what state you're in, they all vary. So you can apply that radius there. Another thing, some people will do this, more of a Western thing, but I could see it happening anywhere you're hunting public land, is placing a radius on a trailhead. You say, man, most people aren't going to hike more than a half a mile. So you set it to like 800-900 yards. And then that zone is kind of your exclusion zone where, I want to hike past this because I think I'm going to be hiking past all of the other hunters by getting out of that radius. Again, not something you're going to use on every waypoint, but a pretty cool option there for certain scenarios. The next tool I want to talk about is our tracker. So it's going to be kind of a lame demonstration because I'm sitting in an office building here. But when I open up my tracker, that's going to be the farthest right icon along the bottom toolbar of your screen. It says tracker. And hit start. My blue dot here has turned red. And you see the timer starting to count down. If I were moving, walking, driving, floating in a boat, I would see a light blue dashed line behind me. That's your breadcrumb trail. So everywhere you hike or everywhere you drive is going to be recorded. I mentioned earlier marking the truck when I go hunting, when I park the truck. Very commonly, the next thing I do is start a track, especially when I'm upland bird hunting or elk hunting and covering a lot of country. It's nice to have that track for reference. Every time I blood trail an animal, I start a track so that I can see where that animal went. Shed hunters use this a lot when they're covering an area to make sure that they covered everywhere that they wanted to go to match up those sheds or to find those sheds. Same thing when I'm upland hunting. It's nice to know, hey, I hit all the covers in this field that I want to look for pheasants or grouse or something. Another very useful way to use the tracker is entry and exit routes to blinds and stands. I mentioned earlier, say I got a new buddy coming out to the lease or out to hunting camp. I can share all the stand locations with them. Excuse me. I can also, if I've ran a track into and or out of there, I can share all those tracks with them so that in the dark they know exactly where to go so that they A, don't get lost, B, maybe they're not stumbling around through a bedding area, or they're traveling the right way to make sure they're upwind of where the deer bed, or they're avoiding that big swamp so that they don't get wet. That's pretty nice. I've used that, deer hunting. Instead of, we used to hang flagging tape or those reflective tacks you might put into trees, and then you're walking in with a flashlight. There's been times where I've just used my onX and just followed that track and followed my dot right up to the stand or blind. So another good use for tracker. It's also a safety thing. You can share waypoints and tracks with people, especially waypoints with a loved one, a significant other, and say, here's where I'm planning to hunt. If you don't hear from me by 9 o'clock, something's wrong. So at least, hopefully this never happens to anybody, but it seems every year we hear stories of hunters getting lost or getting injured. At least they have a starting point to direct, the sheriff's deputy or search and rescue of, well, I know they were hunting this area. I know they parked here. Then they can at least start the search for you. Same thing with if you need help dragging a deer or hauling meat out. I've used it before where I was lucky enough to have service to get a text message out. I had an elk down, not this year. Unfortunately, I didn't get my elk yet, but previous years, send to a buddy, here's where I parked, here's the track in to where I am, and then here's the waypoint of where the dead elk is. And they're able to park where I parked, follow my track in, and meet up with me. So pretty nice feature there. I'm gonna hit stop. If I had moved anywhere, it would give me the option to save this. Since I didn't, I'm just gonna delete it. But you would have the option to save it. You can change the colors. You can change it from a dash to a solid line and change the thickness of it. Do a lot of the same stuff you do with waypoints. You can do those to tracks as well. Okay. I talked a little bit about wind and weather. I want to get into that a little bit deeper now. In the top right corner of my map, there's a button that says weather. When I tap on it, it's going to pull up a weather card and it's going to put a crosshair on my map. This weather information is interpolated for your area. So what does that mean? If you're used to using your traditional weather apps on your phone, a lot of times they're drawing their weather data from the nearest weather station. A lot of times that's an airport or a school or a government building, or sometimes they'll be from weather stations that people have at their house, like the Weather Underground Network, for example, is a well-known one. What we do here is we will pull weather data from a number of nearby stations. We'll pull from like the nearest three and triangulate that for this location to give you a better sense of what the temperature is, what the wind is, and what the precipitation is. So it's going to be the most accurate you can get for that location. It's not just pulling from Missoula Airport, for example. We're going to give you an hourly forecast. So I can just scroll across here. Looks like we're getting some fog tonight, not uncommon for Missoula this time of year. We've got some wind out of the southeast. That should normally show you the wind speed. We have a bug in the weather right now. That will be fixed soon. We also have what I use the most is up near the top here, sunrise and sunset. I use that all the time when I'm out hunting because most of the time, at least for big game in the states I hunt, your hunting hours are a half hour before sunrise to a half hour after sunset. That way you know when it's legal, right? We're going to give you the barometric pressure. We have our new deer movement predictor, which we don't have time to dive completely into the deer movement prediction. That might be its own masterclass at some point. But if I keep scrolling down, I can get a weekly forecast. If I tap on Monday, it's going to give me a little bit more information there. And then we've also got the moon phase in there for For all the folks that are trying to decide, that's a controversy, right? Does moon affect deer movement in the rut and whatever? Um, but that information is available to you if you care about it. If not, don't worry about it. Other ways to get the wind and weather, what I do very commonly is just tap on the map. That's, we're used to this by now. It gives me the overview of who owns it. I can click to see my hunt unit information. Then I can click where it says weather there. It's going to give me that same information I just had. It's just another way to get at that data. So whatever floats your boat there. Okay, before I move over to my web map, I want to talk about compass mode and my location dot. So I've done this a few times. I'm looking at the map. I don't see my blue location dot. How do I get there? In the lower right-hand corner, there's a button that looks kind of like a crosshair. That's your location button. If I tap it once, it's going to bring the map back to my location. If I tap it again, that's going to put my map into what I like to call heads up mode. So you'll notice my map spun. North is no longer up on my map. As I rotate my tablet or my phone, the map is going to rotate with me. So this is useful as I'm traveling, as I'm, walking down a trail, what's on my right, what's on my left. I'll often use this when I'm out in the field. I see some animals. Man, I don't know if they're on public or private or not. I can kind of point my map at it and take a look and see, well, maybe they're on public, maybe they're not. There's a better way or a more accurate way I'll demonstrate in a minute here, but that's just a quick and dirty of, all right, well, what am I looking at here? What's up ahead of me, what's to my left, what's to my right, versus north being oriented up. You'll notice if you're eagle-eyed, when I go into this heads-up mode, another icon appears in the lower right-hand corner. It looks like a compass. It's got the needle on there. If I tap on that, that's going to put me into compass mode. Now, this is a really neat feature. I think we released this about 2 years ago. This allows me to tell with some precision where a target is, where something is. I'm going to utilize our rangefinder mode here. So again, bottom right-hand corner, there's an icon that looks like a handheld rangefinder. When I tap on that, you see I now have a red line emanating from my dot. And to the left of that, it tells me that it's 218 yards away. I can change this. I'm just dragging my finger up and down, and I apologize. It's a little tough to see in town here with all the streets and the buildings. We just kind of have to make do. This is where our office is located. So where this is useful is by allowing you to remotely drop a waypoint on a distant target. I used this a couple years ago on my first mule deer. I was hunting. I saw a bedded mule deer. And I wanted to be able to mark where he was. This could be because I need to stalk in closer because it's too far away. I need to get closer. It could be because after the shot, I want to know where to start blood trailing. So this mule deer, I climbed down, got a shooting position. He was bedded. I ended up laying there for over an hour waiting for him to stand up. But while I was waiting, I ranged him with my handheld rangefinder. It was 270 yards. I laid my phone down, pointed it where the buck was bedded. And then I just drug my finger up to 270. There we are. And then I tapped that orange waypoint icon right above where it says 270. Tap that orange square. That's going to place a waypoint on that spot. From there, I can edit it. In that case, I was out in the field. I was waiting for him to stand up. I edited it later. But, like I showed you earlier, make sure you do that. So what was nice here was now I've got this waypoint that I can reference. The buck stood up in this case. I was able to get a good shot at him. He went over the backside of this ridge and disappeared. All the does he was with ran away. He wasn't with them. I felt pretty good, but I'm a worrier until I see the animal is expired. I'm not going to celebrate. So I got all my stuff up, climbed down. It was in this kind of creek bottom coulee country. Things look different. If you've hunted long enough, doesn't matter if you hunt mountains or bean fields or big woods, you climb down from a tree stand or get walking towards where you shot that deer or that animal, it sometimes can be a little tough to tell exactly where they were standing. Now, here in this instance, I had a waypoint to start. It got me right up there. I could see where the dirt had been kicked up when he jumped at the shot. I walked a little bit further. I found blood. He was dead just on the other side of that ridge. Another example of how to use this is for planning a stalk. Let's say I was just antelope hunting. I don't need to make this talk all about me, but I think some real world examples are helpful here. I was antelope hunting, saw a herd bedded, was able to range them. They were like 500 yards, was outside of my comfortable, range, especially with the 20-mile-an-hour wind I was dealing with there. Needed to stalk in closer. So I had a waypoint where they were bedded. What I did was I tapped on the waypoint, and then along the bottom, there's this go to waypoint option. When I tap go to waypoint, that's going to put a line as the crow flies from my position to that waypoint, and it updates as I move. So I used that so I didn't have to constantly pull out my rangefinder. I could get behind some cover. In this case, it was rolling country. I got behind some rolling hills, got directly downwind of these antelope. And then as I was walking, I could see, all right, I'm at 450. I'm at 420. I'm at 390. I got to like 320, 325 yards, if I remember correctly. Found some sagebrush to tuck behind, crawl up there. I still used my handheld rangefinder just to be sure, but at least I knew, hey, I'm in the ballpark here. Was lucky enough to get an antelope, but that go-to waypoint feature, I think, is an underutilized one. Me and a couple other guys at the office just love it. And I think it's useful, especially for like your spot and stock hunting. A lot of times I use it when I'm hiking back to the truck just to know how much farther I have to go. To get out of it, just click the X in the top left corner. That'll remove that from your map there. All right. I'm going to transition to my laptop now, and I'm going to show everyone a few things on the onX Hunt web map. So the web map comes with your onX membership. It's not an add-on and doesn't cost anything else. You go to our website, onxmaps.com. There you'll log in with the same email address and password that you use on your mobile device. And you'll notice all of my content is here. So any waypoints I mark on my mobile device automatically sync up with my web map here and vice versa. So I do a lot of e-scouting. I just like the bigger view of this map. It helps me when I'm planning out hunts. Any waypoints that I mark on my web map transfer over to my mobile device. So I pulled up the web map here because I wanted to show some of our different base map options. So I'm just going to zoom into some Forest Service here. And you can see this is our satellite base map. Satellite imagery like you're familiar with probably from other mapping apps. If I want to change this, I'm going to go to the lower right-hand corner of my map. This is the same if you're on a mobile device. This button is also in the lower right-hand corner. Mine says SAT 2D. When I click on it, here is where I can go into 3D. We'll demo that in a little bit. Or I can choose different base maps, satellite, hybrid, and topo. The topo base map is like a paper map. If you're familiar with those, with the topographic lines showing you elevation and elevation change. The nice thing about the topo map is it also highlights waterways a lot better than the satellite map. So I've got some creeks here. If I switch over to the satellite, you can't really see those. But when I go to topo, I can see this East Fork Grave Creek, and I can see these smaller streams here. So the symbology here is a solid blue line is going to be your more permanent waterways. They're more likely to have water in them year round. These dashed blue lines are seasonal or ephemeral streams or springs, meaning, especially here in the West, fairly arid, there might not be water in this right now. It might only hold water in the spring during the snow melt and the runoff, or maybe after a big rain event. Otherwise, if I'm banking on, maybe I'm hunting with my dog and I want to get them water, or maybe I'm backpacking in and I'm going to be in there for a week, so I'm going to need to fill up and filter water. Unless you have local knowledge of an area, don't count on these streams having water in them. These more solid ones are more likely to have water for you. So that's something to keep in mind, especially if you're in some of these remote areas where you're going to need to be able to get some water. The base map I use the most is this hybrid base map. That's almost all I use anymore because it gives me the satellite imagery as well as the topographic lines and the waterways. So it really gives me everything I need. I can still see these lines, 6,400 feet, 6,600 feet in the minor topographic lines. And then I can see the creeks and streams in there. So whatever works best for you, use all three, but I tend to default to the hybrid one. A new feature, however, that's getting me to use topo more is LiDAR. This is brand new. So when I turn on the LiDAR switch, it's only available on the topo base map, but you can see the detail level. You can see the difference here from the regular topo to the LiDAR. I can see what looks like these are probably boulders here or little rock fields that don't otherwise show up. Let me find a flatter area because this isn't just a Western feature. Let me see if I can find, some areas in Minnesota. I can see some little ridge lines here that otherwise don't show up. And that can make a difference in relatively flat areas as far as deer movement goes. The difference of a few feet, this looks like this might be almost a stream bed or a little cut here that I wouldn't otherwise know was there. So take a look at it. I think it's pretty sweet just how much more detail you're able to see, whether you're in the mountains like we are here in Montana or whether you're in, flatlands of, where I was deer hunting in northern Minnesota. I measured topo lines one time and it was like 1.5 miles in between 20-foot topo lines. So real flat, swampy country, but a couple feet difference might mean the difference between a deer walking through swamp or walking through keeping their feet dry. And that can be a big help when you're targeting those swamp bucks up there. I'm gonna go back to hybrid here and I'm gonna go into 3D mode. So again, base map button, I'm gonna click 3D. Now I can get a good sense of what this map looks like in real life. Okay, so to pan and move the map, you can either hold down Control and with one finger on your mouse, click and hold and move it around. You can also this is a trackpad on a computer. I'm using 2 fingers or a right click on your mouse will let you manipulate this map. Just a regular left click is how I'm panning this and moving this map. And then when I want to dive into an area, right click, I can move the map down, I can zoom in, I can spin it around to get a different look at it. So another pretty cool feature here. I use this a lot when I'm scouting out an area. Maybe I only want to look at, I use it for spring bear hunting a lot, and I'll pull it down. And now since I'm looking to the north, I'm looking at those south-facing slopes, which are the areas the bears like to hang out in the spring. And I use this to scout out and look for areas where I think a bear might be hanging out. Whatever type of hunting you're doing, whatever works for you there. 2 more things before we move into search and then Q&A. How am I doing on time? We have a couple new imagery options, leaf off imagery and recent imagery. I'm going to move my map to Wisconsin where we have leaf off imagery. Leaf off is an elite only feature, so you do have to have that elite membership to access it. But it does give you a fall or winter image. We don't have this yet in all states. I think we have 13 or 15 states right now. But it is a pretty cool option to be able to toggle that and see the difference. Here's a pretty clear example of where there's some evergreen trees. This looks like probably a pine plantation versus deciduous. And you can see the change. A lot of places you can see through the leaf cover and even see some deer trails or ATV trails. See what the ground looks like a little better, especially at the time of year in the fall when a lot of our hunting takes place. If you're in a state where we don't have leaf off imagery available, we will let you know, like my home state of Minnesota, we don't yet have it. There'll be this filter over that tells you there's no leaf off available. We're trying to add more states. Not every state has good leaf off imagery available. We're prioritizing the eastern half of the country. All those states we have are east of the Rocky Mountains, just because it's not that it's not applicable everywhere, but that's where the bulk of the deciduous forest is in this country, is eastern half of the country. So that's why we're focusing on that area right now. So if I zoom out, you can see we have some areas of Iowa, some areas of Missouri. Looks like we got pretty much almost all of Illinois, Ohio. So take a look at that. Again, that's an elite only feature. And then the recent imagery. Recent imagery is available nationwide in the US. And this is satellite imagery that's taken every 2 weeks. This is not a replacement for our regular imagery. There's some confusion around that because as I zoom in, you'll notice it's more blurry than our regular imagery. That's the trade-off. This is taken via satellite every 2 weeks. It's not via aerial flyover. So it's not going to be as crisp of imagery. This isn't meant to replace our standard imagery. It's meant to be an additional tool. So right now I can use this to kind of track the snow cover. And I can go back in time along the bottom here. I'm just clicking through time. We have dates going all the way back to spring of 2023. So if you're going to be hunting a new area, you can say, man, when do they usually get snow? And every year, of course, is different, but I can take a look here and, oh yeah, 2023, we got snow late October, early November. 2024, late October, early November again. Waterfowl hunters will use this to check, hey, is it freezing up north? Are they icing up? Are birds coming down? They'll use it to check water levels in ponds and reservoirs. Now, it is a 2-week window, so it's not going to be exact necessarily, but it does give you a good idea of what the conditions are like. Upland hunters use it to check the crop harvest, pheasant hunters especially. Hey, are the crops coming out or not? In the spring, I use it for bear hunting to see, can I get into this area or is there still too much snow? So take a look at that. That is another one that is elite only. So you do have to have that elite access. Okay. Last thing I want to touch on in the demonstration is performing a search. So if I go up to the upper left-hand corner of my map, I have a search bar here. On a mobile device, it's in the upper right-hand corner, and it looks like a magnifying glass. If you tap on that magnifying glass, you'll be shown the search bar. I can search kind of in 2 categories here, location and private land. Private land would be if I'm looking for a person's property. So I'm just gonna, got my map here in Missoula. Let's go. If I could spell right, Michael Smith. Just, I don't know a Michael Smith, but picking a generic name. And I've got a bunch of different results here. Couple tips here. The map is going to prioritize search results based on what you're viewing. So what that means is all of these are in Western Montana, Missoula County, Ravalli County, Powell County. If I was looking for a Michael Smith in Georgia, I'd want to move my map to Georgia. It would give me results for Georgia. If I know specifically northern Georgia, zoom in on northern Georgia. If I know they're in, Charlotte, North Carolina, zoom in on Charlotte. Give the map a little bit of help to get you better results. The more information you can put in here, the better. If I know Michael's middle name or middle initial, I can put that. If I know Michael and his spouse are listed on the deed, type in both names there. And from there, I can just click on these results and it will zoom me into that property. That's not the one I'm looking for. I'm going to go back, click the second one. Nope, that's not it. Click this one. And you can kind of find it that way. You can also, if you know the size of the property, if you know, man, I'm looking for a farm field, it's a couple hundred acres, I can filter it to only show me 160 acre parcels or bigger and hit apply. Doesn't look like there's too many of those in the middle of Missoula, as you might expect. Now I'm getting bigger parcels here. Okay. So that's how you search for private land. If I'm looking for a geographic feature, a town, I'm going to select location. And here I could put in, oh, I don't know. Let's go Pierre, South Dakota. Hit location. Here's my first result. Click there. There I am in Pierre, South Dakota. So if you just want to quickly find an area, you can use the search. I can also search for Glacier National Park. That's good typing, Jack. Glacier National Park. There we go. It's going to bring me to Glacier National Park. You can search for lakes, you can search for mountain peaks, any kind of geographic feature, town, of course. You can also search for GPS coordinates. So this is a question we get fairly regularly. People will ask, I have coordinates from another program, or somebody just texted me some coordinates. How can I place a waypoint from those coordinates? Here's how. You're going to want to use decimal format, not UTM or degrees, minutes, seconds. Decimal works best for this. If you have them from a text message, you can copy and paste them in here. I don't have that, so I'm just going to type in, let's go 42 degrees north. You can go up to 5 decimal points. The more specific you are, the more accurate it's going to be. And then your second coordinate has to have a minus sign in front of it because we are west of the internet, or not the international dateline, the prime meridian. If you don't put a negative sign, it's going to put you over in Europe or Africa or Asia somewhere. You're looking for those areas, don't put a minus sign if you're looking in the Eastern Hemisphere. For the Western Hemisphere, you want to have a minus sign. So I'm just going to go 101.00. This should put us somewhere on the Great Plains. Here's my option. I'm going to click on it. Here I have this little icon on my map. If I go over to my information card here and hit add waypoint, now I have a waypoint on those coordinates. So that's how you would take coordinates from another program or somebody else and mark a waypoint on them. Where am I here? Nebraska. Nailed that, right on the Great Plains. So that's how you perform a variety of different searches within the app. I'm going to stop sharing and I want to switch back over to my presentation here because we do have a little bit more information for everyone. So if you don't currently have an onX membership, we do have a discount code for you. This is a 30% discount on your first year, and the promo code is app101. All one word, no space. That does have to be used on our website. Promo codes are not accepted on the Google Play Store or the Apple App Store. If you try to purchase through the Google Play Store or the Apple App Store, they will charge you full price. You have to use it on our website, onxmaps.com. If you have any trouble with that, email us, help@onxmaps.com. We'll be happy to get you taken care of there. So again, that's app101. If you don't have a current membership, saves you 30%. More ways to learn. Our website, of course, is a great source of information. We have all kinds of tutorials on there. If you're like me and you sometimes prefer to read something to understand it better, onxmaps.com. You can also go to our YouTube channel. We have some demos on there. Our customer support center, I mentioned it before. You can email us anytime, help@onxmaps.com. We have coverage 7 days a week during hunting season. After the season, we go back to 5 days a week. But if you email us tonight, you can expect a response within 24 hours. And then, of course, more onX classes. We have some coming up. We're going to be getting into application season for Western big game tags. Idaho has a new draw this year. So we pull in our friends from the Huntin' Fool. They're the experts at this. They'll lead you through everything you need to know about the Idaho draw. We'll have some other state-specific ones later on in 2026. We do an onX Hunt 101 pretty much every month. And then again, starting after the first of the year, we're going to go into our onX Hunt Research Tools, which is our draw odds calculator. And we will take you through how to utilize that feature within the app. All right. With that, I'm going to see if our customer support folks have passed anything along, anything I neglected to mention or need to go over again. Someone asked, can you show an example of how you would use LiDAR to find a saddle? Sure. So a saddle, especially for those not in mountainous country, a saddle is a low spot between two high points. So these are great places to find animals crossing because they are not going to cross at the highest point. Usually I will use, topographic maps to find a saddle. So here's a mountain peak. Here's a mountain peak. This is a saddle in between. So I'm going to go over to topo and LiDAR I have turned on. So I can tell this is a high point. This is a high point. This looks like that saddle in between them. It's lower than the rest of the country. So if deer or elk are moving from one face, moving from the north side to the south, this is the most likely area. Or maybe this kind of not really a saddle, a little bit more of a minor saddle. If I go into 3D mode, you can really see, yeah, that's the lowest point in between these two. So that's how you can kind of find a saddle. Let's see. Track feature, we went over the rangefinder tool. Are we going to do a 202 class in the future? I've thought about it, of doing, kind of an intermediate class that builds on this one. We do have to figure out time in the schedule because we're also doing, our onX fish app. We do classes for those as well as, species specific ones. So we're going to do some turkey hunting ones in the spring. We do elk hunting ones. Got to find time in the schedule, but that's something I've thought about. Something might be something we do in the future. Let's see. Someone asked, so if the wind is out of the southwest, I'll want to set up and set optimal wind as northeast. Not really. I think you're maybe confused a bit there with that optimal wind. So the optimal wind is referring to in this tree stand, I might only want to hunt certain winds because I want the deer to travel upwind of me. So if I want, if the wind's out of the southwest, but I expect the deer are going to be northeast of me, that wind is going to be blowing from the southwest to the northeast. That's bad. If I expect the deer are going to be northeast of me, I want northeast to be the optimal wind because I want to hunt where that wind is coming out of the northeast. So if I can only hunt this stand, let's say I'm set on a food plot and I'm on the south edge of this food plot. I don't want to hunt a south wind because that wind's going to be blowing up into that food plot. I might only want to hunt it on a northwest, north, and northeast wind. I'll set those as my optimal wind. That way I know the wind is blowing from the food plot, from the animals to me. I hope that makes sense. I hope I explained that well. We are about at time here. I always try to keep this thing as close, try to keep it under an hour and a half. We're right at time there. So I do want to thank everybody for joining us. Hopefully we got to all of your questions. I see a bunch of people asking if this recording will be available. Like I mentioned earlier, we'll send an email to everybody tomorrow evening with this recording. It'll be on our YouTube channel, so you can just watch it at your leisure. You'll get an email about this time tomorrow evening. There is a survey at the end of this class to let us know how we did, what you thought of the class. If there are suggestions for future classes, we're always looking for topics that people are going to find interesting. Let us know in there. And with that, man, it's hunting season. Hopefully you still have some hunting to come. I know some states are shutting down now while others are getting going. So hopefully folks are able to get outside. Thanksgiving next weekend. Hope everyone has safe travels. If you're traveling, has a good Thanksgiving. And just thanks again, everybody. And we hope to see you on a future class.